order. So for roll call, we have Kate Lampier, Lucy Leahy, Katie Murphy, Steve Browning, Scott Kendall, myself, Brian Wonderly. Now we have your board members online this time. All right. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Any conditions and revisions?
Adrian, there's a fan line over here. I have no idea who said.
Stop.
I assumed, but I didn't.
All right. 30 seconds.
Other things.
I'll
All
speak
right,
up.
all in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All of me now.
The loudest I All right, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the June 27th meeting.
Move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and we're gonna come to our first public comment section. Anyone in the public that wants to speak now?
Is there a procedure for where and?
Normally we have the podium, but it's behind everybody, so that's fine. You just
Okay,
stand.
stand up.
Yeah, just stand and let people, and announce for Amber where your name and where you're from.
Sure. So I'm Wendy McNaughton. I live in Cavendish. And just a few thoughts to put out before we hear the meeting. I haven't been at them all. I know there may be questions I have that will be answered later. But the first thought just to put out is that whatever changes we might be looking at making within the district, I'd really like to see what the financial information is on that, both the savings and the cost. And this, of course, is only one of the factors when we make an educational decision. But I teach over in West Rutland, and we made a lot of decisions with Act 46 without actually budgeting through what the details would be, and it has cost us more in my district. And for better or worse, educationally in many cases. So I just wanted to make sure that we've thought through that before we make any type of decision. I'd like to also make sure we see the pros and cons of all the options. It sounds like because of our survey, we have a few thoughts that we kind of focused on pretty immediately based on the public's reaction. We didn't really always have all the information to think through the pros and cons of each of those. So I would just urge the board to make sure we get the details of all the options first. And just generally speaking, I'd urge us not to rush into moving the 6th grade up. Number one, it won't help right size Cavendish at all. It'll do the opposite if that is one of our goals. But more importantly, it's going to be a social emotional issue. The risk behavior survey for the state really clearly says that there's a major increase in bullying from 7th grade from 6th grade. And so that gap becomes a really important piece to get kids supported before they make that move. And the climate survey at Cavendish said approximately that 90% of families felt safe sending their kids there. And Green Mountain is closer to 50% feeling safe. And so moving those younger kids up becomes a major concern just for the perception of parents who have reported that out. And there's just a lot of changes right now. We've had a principal for only a year. We have a superintendent who's just starting now. There is another commission order from the state to look at all of this right sizing schools that's coming through. Cavendish may be starting a pre-K in another year. There's just so many other changes coming. I would urge us to slow down and consider those things before we make permanent or semi-permanent decisions about the structure of our school district. Thank you.
Anyone else on the speaker count?
I'm Sarah Deborah. So I also want to talk about the possible moving 6th grade up to Green Mountain. I just wanted to share a few facts that I felt was relevant to this topic. So obviously this whole thing is about education. So according to the Vermont Agency of Education, Cavendish Elementary School was meeting academic proficiency, while Chester Andover Elementary School and Green Mountain Union High School were approaching academic proficiency. And then, of course, other things going on within Green Mountain. choosing to relocate children to a building with PCB levels as high as 600 nanograms per cubic meters is unsafe. And Vermont claims immediate action should be taken if there are over 300 nanograms per cubic meter. So, we got double the amount. And there are no elevated levels of PCB detected at Cavendish Town Elementary School. So therefore, it would be unreasonable and irresponsible to allow a child to be exposed to PCBs if they are already in an environment which they're safe in. So I asked, why should the induction of new students be prioritized over the existing ongoing issues that Vermont is?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, my name is Jack Williams. I'm a Windsor County Senate candidate for 2024, and I'm here as just an observer to see how this is working out for everyone.
Is there anyone online wishing to speak? I'm seeing hands up. All right. So now we'll move into new business, which there is none. And then we enter into old business, which is our building restructuring. Does everybody have a copy of the minutes? If you want a copy, just so you can reference.
Thanks. Leaning on. Postpone.
So assuming you read them because we approved them, but I just wanted to kind of go back to the last paragraph where we sort of summed up the last meeting, trying to narrow down options that we've been previously discussing. We talked about commingling some of the choices. We acknowledged that there wasn't a huge amount of support for option one, which was consolidating grades. We discussed that redrawing lines seemed to be kind of ambiguous and did not seem to be a long-term solution. And then we all kind of agreed in regards to increasing communication and awareness of the ability to choose schools in the elementary school. And I believe at that time, Joey also clarified for us, it's not an automatic, there's an application. So if you want to go to a school that's not in your geographic area, they do try to accommodate, but it's not automatic. And then Kate, you had asked me to talk to Cheryl specifically about some financial recommendations, and she said that it's at this point it's too amorphous for her to be putting predictive budgets together, and it's also very time consuming. So she's asking that when we come up with the idea that we're most inclined to pursue, then she'll have more specific information. And then also we need to it would be a board action. So we need to ask the board to ask Lane to direct Cheryl to do that if that's what we decide as a board. Okay, so that's that.
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
So if we are not going to get financial information about the decision that we're supposed to make, are we not going to be making a decision? We will say, here is an idea for you to explore. And then once we have all the information, including the financials, at that point, we will make a decision? Or is the ask of the board to make a decision about restructuring in advance of having all of the information, including the financials?
No, I don't think it's going to be asked to be made prior to having all of the information. However, it's not going to be, that's not going to be like the, a defining, because there's just too many, specifics that she's not going to be able to budget, because she talked about some administrative things, I want to say contracts. There were just things that she wasn't able to really account for.
It's incredibly complex, which is why making a decision by August, absent any of that, feels nearly impossible.
Yeah, well, we don't need to make it by August. I mean, I think that we, kind of talked about early fall, discussed with Lane possibly pushing it into October. It's just prior to the next budgetary cycle, so that it is, something that we can achieve the next year. The other thing that I want to kind of remind people is this action is not meant to be a savings action. We're not looking to save money. This is meant for resource allocation. So, I don't know where that kind of bubble of we're doing this to save money is coming from, because that's not one of our goals. We have, a pool of resources as a district, and we're looking to allocate it in a way that all of our district students are receiving it in equal distribution. Okay, so that's okay. Anybody have anything to bring up, discuss?
A couple of things, actually. There's an interesting article in Vermont Digger. And it talks about treatment before diagnosis. And the writer, who's an expert on management, works in Montpelier, and has a fine profile, has talked about the work of the Commission on the Future of Public Education. And his point, and I can send everybody a copy of this article, his point is, the Commission for the Future of Public Education is mandated to come up with some strategies by mid-September. Those may include further consolidation, with suggestions about closing schools of certain enrollments. They may include construction concepts. We don't know. They may include some thoughts about education policy, about actual education. So anyway, they're supposed to issue an interim report in September and a final report by December 15th. So insofar as this is sort of critical to the state's perspective on what needs to be done with our schools, I think it's prudent just to get a clue about where they are going. If, for example, they're saying we're closing all schools under 100 students, or we're closing all high schools under 500 students, or under half capacity, we have some real challenges ahead of us. So I would caution us about moving too fast and getting into a situation that we need to backpedal on or unwind should those findings affect the schools that we're considering. The other thing I wanted to bring up, which is a completely different point, I was really struck by the long-form survey answers. There were a lot of good ideas in there that we haven't considered. And honestly, I took 45 minutes to read them, and I didn't read them as carefully as I'd like at the district office, because they weren't presented in a way that we could really drill down on them. But there are terrific suggestions in there, and a lot of confusion. Frankly, I was impressed by how many people were utterly confused by the survey. I think one of the things that came up time and time again was, I didn't know we could go to Cavendish Elementary School. Why should we even consider it? I thought that in particular was incredibly poorly presented as a choice to me. But there were other choices and other suggestions in there that I think we ought to take a look at. They're ironically, I know that Lane has done a lot of work in environmental science, and we need to sort out the PCG thing. But somebody said, no, you move all of Chester Andover School to GM. You've done it before. You've solved the overcrowding problem at Chester Andover and the undercapacity issue at GM. You could sell the property and invest it in improving the structure and programs at GM, and the overall impact might not be as great as some of the other choices. But that was on there as a suggestion. Somebody else said make CES and CTES K-8 schools and close the high school. I don't know what that would look like, and I'm not suggesting it, but I think given what Kate has said, if we had a financial analysis and some real structural impact insight, I think that we could make some good decisions about that. We know that high school needs an incredible amount of work. The last bond failed. We're now in a situation with CLA where the passage of another bond is very unlikely. How are we going to address some of those structural issues? Other people talk about much more radical ideas, but these two in particular seem to be worth looking at. So just to go on, Adrian talked about the objective not being necessarily to save money. And certainly the object is not to spend more money. But it would be wonderful to consider a plan that would improve academic outcomes. And I don't see any analysis in any of these shufflings that talk about improving academic outcomes. So I want to know if there's a plan that actually stands out because it actually improves academic outcomes. Okay. Another point. The survey was really unclear about CTES as a choice, and there was absolutely no mention of the advantages, the excellent scores, fifth grade scoring twice as high in math as Chester Andover School. And I understand we don't want to pit neighbors against each other or hurt the Chester Andover teachers' feelings, but there is a clear difference between the schools, and people ought to know that. I think we ought to also mention that if we can possibly figure transportation into that survey, the idea that you get a bus from Chester to Cavendish, that's you don't have to drive. It's going to be a 20-minute ride. We thought ahead on that. I think might speak to right sizing Chester and right sizing and improving the situation at Cavendish where it's underutilized. But buses are available. I'm still very interested in hearing NASDAQ when they proposed their restructuring concept or analysis, talked about population modeling, and they talked about talking to real estate agents and trying to determine the actual demographics of our community. And we see none of that in these choices that we're considering. I really think that having that background information would inform our decisions and make them much clearer to our constituents.
Discuss.
Just like to follow up with a question. I'm not on the transportation committee, so I don't know too much about it, but what does the busing flexibility look like if we were going to be offering something like that? We don't even know.
We don't even know. That's the answer.
We have 4.5 bus drivers, and we have 7 buses. We don't know the routes yet. That's our next meeting, is to try to get Sue Willis involved to show us and tell us what the routes are going to be. And have Todd tell us how our buses are looking for the next year. I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't know.
But the buses do currently travel between Chester and Cavendish. Because they pick kids up in Cavendish to go to Green Mountain and then come back to Cavendish to drop. It's an interesting flow of traffic that happens, but they are moving back and forth. Now, I don't want anybody's kindergartner to have to get on the bus at 6:30 in the morning. I don't think we should have ninth graders getting on the bus at 6:30 in the morning either. Probably better to have a kindergartner do that actually, but they are already traveling between the two communities in some fashion. I would
The main thing I spent the last 2 weeks looking at is the population projection data, just to see like what are we looking at here. And the main thing that really stood out to me was the ability for a potential district-wide pre-K program to, regardless of what's happening with the sixth grade, I think adding that option, that program as something that folks in the area could consider to Cavendish, be a great way to bolster numbers and make that building viable long term. Looks like between 20 and 30 pre-K kids in our district are projected for, I think it goes out to 2028 right now. So if you can add 30 kids to the school, I see that as kind of a no-brainer in my mind. We heard at the last Chester Town Hall that Chester folks would be willing to bring their kids to Cavendish if there was a program like that available. And it seems like, you know, Kate, to go back to your comments about we shouldn't be looking for one solution for two different problems. That seemed like one solution for one problem that as not the only solution, but as a part of a tapestry or a larger series of solutions should definitely be something we're kind of moving forward on, because it just seems like it would really help make sure that school kind of had the numbers if we are talking about consolidating or shutting down schools below a certain point, if it's mandated by the state in the future. Seems like something that the sooner we can get it in place and get it up and running, the better for everyone, in my opinion.
It is definitely needed, and I don't know that you could count on every
Right. Oh, yeah.
student
No,
in
I
the
mean,
district going to Cavendish, because you know, I work in Springfield and whatnot, so it would be a percentage of that we would estimate, I would think, but I think it's absolutely, there's a desperate need for spots,
Yeah.
spots.
It seemed like a bit of a win-win. You provide
I
a
agree.
service for the community and you make sure that building can be viable long term. And yeah, all the population projections, big old asterisks next to it, just in terms of the number of people, much less if they utilize it or anything like that. But, it's my thoughts.
If it's appropriate, yeah. I think for me, and I like the discussion I'm hearing on the preschool piece, is that, you know, my goal in coming in here is right off the top is to try to get your points up. And so if people can keep that in the back of their minds, I think that's critical. The preschool idea is one of the things that do it. One of the things that increase enrollments, right, is making the district and the schools more attractive, not just to the people here, but the people in the surrounding towns. Preschool will work and it will be sustainable, and you will get high numbers if you add a few things to it. A lot of parents that are going to put their students in preschool, you know, they're looking at it from kind of the daycare perspective because that's what's needed to be able to go to work. So if you can build an after-school programming with it, and if you can make sure that it still serves the students on school vacations, you will have a flood of parents wanting to have kids here because it serves their needs pretty well. And even better, but then it gets expensive, is, you know, if you could run it through the summer. But there are ways of cost sharing and things with parents and the new subsidies that are coming out to help parents that may not be able to afford it. It's a good plan. The second piece is any program that is going to include the ability to create a middle school concept. You know, we talk about student performance, and those are critical grades. Being able to get those students kind of on their own, under their own schedule, with a program that's really going to serve the transition needs that they have as they're going through puberty, as they're going from elementary to high school, where they're at the elementary, you know, the teachers are kind of really keeping track of them, and then they're looking for that independence. There's also a whole broad set of skill sets that they need to develop during those years if they're going to be successful adults. How do I deal with conflict with my peers? How do I approach an adult? You know, if there's conflict as well, how do I have those discussions? And so those are all things that would make the district more attractive, and hopefully get people coming in. So where the preschool is doesn't matter to me, and I'm happy to work on it, and the same thing with the middle school. But as I would suggest that as you look at these models, anything that's going to support those two would be dramatically helpful to the district. And I'll say one last thing, and I apologize because I've been pulling in lots of data the last couple of days. you're in a position right now where you're kind of on a balance beam. When you cut budgets, when you cut programs, that makes a district less attractive to people. And so you kind of set up this feedback loop where we're cutting programs, it's less attractive, we lose enrollment, so we need to cut more. And so sometimes doing the reverse helps, is going out and talking with the community and saying, what programs can we offer that you really want? You know, is it AP? Do we have you know, students here that can take advantage of that and parents that want that? Then we spend some money to build some AP programs, and you get kids coming in that way. Are there certain things in athletics that they want, or after school or extracurricular or foreign travel? Those are all things that we can build in, you know, with minimal expense compared to the overall budget that might get that reverse flow. And then what happens is you get people moving in, you get more of a tax base, you can build more programs, more people move in, and kind of reverse that cycle.
Thanks. I don't really understand what you mean by middle school concept, and I only say this because we have a middle school right now. Do we not currently have a middle school concept, and what is that?
And that's something that I'm gonna have to look at. When you get 6th, 7th, and 8th grade graders together,
6th, 7th, 8th graders? Is that what you just said?
6th, 7th, and 8th. They are in a state of transition, going from children basically to adults. And that requires a different kind of interaction, different kind of programs if we're going to develop them fully and effectively than just regular school like they've been used to. And one of the things that you see, and I haven't had a chance to get into the data yet here in a lot of districts in Vermont, because of their structures, a lot of them don't have real middle schools. So what you'll see is the kids actually, their performance is improving. 5th grade, it starts to top off. 6th grade, it drops. 7th, 8th grade, it sits down here. And then when they get to 9th grade, it starts to climb again. And the reason that you've got that shape in terms of their performance is because there's something that those students need that we're not providing.
Do you see that same curve in, like, say, a school that is a middle school? Like, is it developmental or is it programming?
If they have programming that serves the social emotional needs, that has an effective advisory that's curriculum based to teach them the skills that they need as they transition, which includes study skills. This is how you study, this is how you learn. I mean, those are things that you have to teach kids. And you give them a safe place to practice it. Yeah, if it's an effective program.
Then you see it,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
developmental.
Yeah.
Thanks.
As far as the 6, 7, 8 concept, that makes perfect sense to me. Like, that's actually how I always understood it. My question is not knowing the whole physical layout of this building well enough to say, you know, would it be simple enough to have a 6, 7, 8-year-old wing where that program could be run kind of independent of everything else going on?
Yeah, I walked the space third. Are we on the 3rd floor? Yeah, so
We're on.
it's on this floor, so you can actually walk out. This floor is pretty much free. Financially, the only big thing that I could see was that they're general classrooms and they're in good shape. But you need a science space, right? You're gonna have to bring in some water, some sinks, lab tables and things. So, you're talking, 60,000, 100,000 outlay for that. But it definitely could work. The PCB piece, I think we're gonna have answers to that relatively shortly. They're coming in this summer. They're gonna replace the windows in 2 of the classrooms and see what the impact is, because they believe the PCBs are in the weather stripping around the windows. They're also going to do some core samples to see if the PCBs have actually, the bricks and mortar around it are porous, see if there's been infiltration and if that needs to be cleaned out too. But if they come into those 2 rooms, and one of them, I believe, has a higher, concern, and that fixes the problem, they could potentially replace all those windows.
Who's cost?
State. Yeah. Assuming the legislature budgets what they're supposed to. That's been the problem.
Yeah, I mean,
Read my
that
mind,
hasn't
Scott.
been, they say that, but the experience is that was.
So just, are we paying to replace those windows as well?
Now, my understanding is no, but I'll reconfirm with Todd. Yeah.
they're giving us a check for the windows and we're going to reimburse.
I
You
think,
are gonna-
yeah, I'll check. You know what? I'll put that down to do
I
a,
remember him reimbursing.
Because I did
Which is
check,
scary because we
Right.
started this whole thing with the testing and that was supposed to be a reimbursement thing. And the state said, oh yeah, we're gonna cover it, And then they went, maybe we aren't gonna cover it.
yeah, well, they only put 3 million aside that year, so.
Right. because I checked, and I checked Vermont Department of Health and AOE, and the PCB level is K through 6 is one level is allowable for an indoor school, and 7 through 12 is allowable for an indoor school. So I don't know what the level actually is, but it is a lower level for younger kids.
And you're not in a desirable state right now, right? Because you got PCBs, but you do have what appears to be an effective system, even though it's a pain, that is taking care of them. And so one of the questions that would be a part of this discussion is, are those systems getting the levels down below where we would need for the younger students?
We're just like down, gone.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't actually know what the safe level is.
Yeah, but we may have an answer shortly,
Yeah,
you know, but by mid-fall.
I'd hate to see sixth graders on the carbon filters before.
No, and then this process, the way it's folding out, you know, we're looking a year down the road, right? Because you got to go through the budget cycle, which always takes time.
They can say they're gonna pay for it, get it right.
There would be, can you imagine the press if they said they did and they didn't, and they let little kids be in a building with
So
PCs?
They do it all.
already said that. They already said that they were covered.
I've worked with Pietro for many years. I believe you guys are working with Pietro as your legal counsel. He's good.
Discussion, questions, thoughts?
You asked for comments on the survey, when the survey together, and I responded the next day. 10 minutes after I responded, the survey was distributed.
Actually, no.
I
Steve, I have it also. And if you look back at the minutes, no, because I kind of knew you were going to say that at some point. If you look at the minutes from the previous meeting, we were going to send it out and specifically 1 to 2 days for board feedback. We got 2 people, Lisa, who had requested no change, and Scott, who said no change. Nobody else responded. I waited until Friday at noon when I met for my agenda meeting, and I gave the okay. So I kept my word. It wasn't some intentional, like, oh, Steve's here, gonna send it out.
That wasn't intentional.
No.
Okay, I can accept that. It's still from the responses, we know that people were confused and they didn't understand what commingling meant. They weren't really clear what the drawing lines meant. They had no clue about making a choice between CTEs and Chester. And then the other suggestions that have come up, I think. So, I'd like to spend some time considering putting together a much clearer survey so that we can get some better community input, especially after we've started these discussions and people are more aware of what we're considering. It would be great to get more civic engagement. I mean, we've had, a lot more civic engagement here than we've had in months. So I'm excited. I do.
I think
How does the board feel about additional surveys?
I am hesitant to continue down the survey loop because it can, at least in my professional experience, seeing stuff, similar things where it's a survey followed by another survey, and nothing changes because we're in a constant loop of we're going to get another survey, never make a decision. But I'm not saying we need to hastily just make a decision. People shouldn't have a voice, but I'm hesitant to continue the survey, especially if it keeps changing. Because we're just changing the feedback and not really, at least that's kind of my opinion on it. What are we really looking for?
I would agree if the survey had been clear, but we see time and time again in those responses. What does this mean? and I'm confused about this.
Well, the
If only
voter
I
on
know.
the lines is confusing. We don't even know what that means. As an option, I don't understand because
So
we don't have that clear.
what would be the grade of providing a clear survey?
I think my hope is to have more community involvement and community feedback. I don't know what way that comes in, but I know that as soon as we started talking about taking sixth graders out of Cavendish community started to get engaged in saying, that's not what we want to do. And our, sure,
Don't sixth graders from Cavendish participate in track with the middle school?
I don't know, there were a couple of them.
Because I'm just wondering, and this is not a leg,
I think that.
but we have
issue-
Chester Andover sixth graders that come participate in middle school athletics.
I think
mean,
last year was the first year that happened with Cavendish, but nonetheless, the issue with moving the Cavendish sixth graders is both academic concerns, developmental concerns, but also the sustainability of the school. That feels like it leaves Cavendish vulnerable. And as soon as Cavendish started to hear about that, coming to Chester to run track, and going back to your elementary school is a very different thing than sending your seventh graders or sixth graders over here.
I just mean.
So I just think that there's more involvement that we could elicit. And the Cavendish community is talking about all sorts of things that are, I think we need to take as a message that they're not happy with that decision. And I don't, again, I think Chester is happy because Chester has a very different problem than Cavendish has. And so we have to treat them as separate, different problems. And I, for one, just need, I just have such a hard time making a decision about anything without supportive evidence. So it feels like I'm just making a decision that's completely out of my scope of expertise because that doesn't sit well with me. So I have to have the data and the finances and the academic implications before I can say any of them are okay. Otherwise, it's like, just stay where we are until we get that. And to me, that's not August, that's not October, that's perhaps the 2 years out. And I know that doesn't sit well with people, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, same. I mean, and just to get in front of it, I think everybody on the board saw the Cavendish select board meeting. So I want to be very clear that the board will not get in the way. If Cavendish wants to explore that option, you know, that is, you know, you want to do what's best for your town. Nobody here is going to tell you not to do that. But this group, this board, this subcommittee, the board as a whole, we have to focus on this as a district issue.
Understood.
District issue, district problem, district, resolution.
Of which Cavendish is part of the district. And
But
they
it's not the
feel like
only
they're
part. And well, and that's what I think we need to discuss maybe a little more openly is it's sounding like Cavendish is feeling like, you know, they're being picked on. And I don't know how to convey it differently that they're not. Nobody is looking to close Cavendish. Nobody. I think we've said that numerous times on this board. Nobody is looking to close Cavendish. We don't want the school to close. So I don't know where, again, that kind of bubble thought is coming from that, oh, this is the first step to get rid of Cavendish. What we're looking for is a way that is going to allow, you know, the issue at Chester, which is becoming critical, to be resolved, which is going to allow for our resources to be equally distributed. So, you know, yes, Cavendish has good, you know, good scores. Is it because they have micro classrooms versus Chester, which does not? We don't know. But I don't think that all by itself should be a deciding factor. I think that we have excellent teachers in both schools. And if we can find a way that all of the children are benefiting from all of our resources, we're going to be in a much better place. And I really want to, I maybe just like pump the brakes in regards to the division that's on this board in regards to this. You know, Andover and Baltimore and Chester are not ganging up behind the scenes to come after Cavendish. And, you know, when you guys are talking, there's an undertone to it. There really is. There's this undertone that we're trying to take out Cavendish, and we're not.
Clear.
We're not. And I just,
Clearly, if you were to take the sixth grade out of Cavendish.
and Chester's,
Right. You would reduce the enrollment in Cavendish to 50 students or something. And it would be a gigantic target for all the things that Emily Kornheiser has talked about. You know, the scaling of the schools, enrollment level that makes sense, and closing schools. Specifically, she said, closing schools under 100 students. So
yes,
if we get a little crazy, it's because we are standing out there naked. And this woman she's a lot of great ideas, newer and fewer things brilliant. But she has specifically said, schools are wrong.
But you're saying we, as if it's not us, you know,
We have talked about moving sixth graders out of Cavendish. And
Manchester.
But
And
it
creating a
does not-
middle
it does
school
not
environment
work.
and then moving a preschool or some sort of other program into Chester to into Cavendish to bolster population. I mean, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of like attacking back and forth, like, but I just, I guess I'm just addressing the elephant in the room, you know?
I think that it is not, I don't believe anybody on this board is out to get Cavendish. That has never been my thought. I trust the intentions of every single person in this room explicitly. I am still worried that the decisions we are making will set Cavendish up to be closed. I just am, because the numbers that I see are taking kids out of Cavendish and not putting enough kids back in. If I can see some data, and we all agree that moving sixth graders from both schools is absolutely the right thing to do for the sixth graders, I can get behind that. But as it sits right now, it feels terrifying to think about our school closing, because it's not just a school closing. That is the vitality of our community. That is, you know, when a school closes, my parents, the school are closed, and there's nobody in that town but the old people and a couple of Airbnbs because it's nearly Bombazine. That is not what I want for Cavendish. And I see people in meetings and somebody says, well, I came to Cavendish because of a school. And then everybody raises their hand and says, me too. And so people have actually moved there. So it is not, I think you're trying to close Cavendish. I know nobody has said that. And I want people to say, we are committed to keeping Cavendish open. We are committed to improving the academic outcomes of every school in this district. We are committed to keeping all of our schools open and sustaining them. If I heard that, I might not be so scared, but I don't hear that.
But I think that, but I think that's been said. No, nobody's looking to close schools. Everybody is on the board to improve academic, excellence within our schools. We want our children in this environment to succeed. I mean, maybe not saying it with that gusto or those exact words,
We could sit in this and talk about this month after month, and the state could come up and say, we're gonna close.
Yeah, I get it.
And that's the biggest, I've said it 100 times, it's my biggest fear, the state's gonna set that. And that's also why I invited some of these people here. They're running for state reps to run against the people that are making these decisions. I'm a firm believer, school choice, I'm a firm believer, Act 46 ruined everything in the state.
Flavor of public education and keeping schools in your community.
Me too, town wrong. Community wrong.
Sorry.
Oh, no.
It's a lot of energy and I care about you all. Can we hug?
Vehemently support keeping Cavendish open. I'm a big supporter of that. You get your gusto right here, Kate, absolutely. And I think as I was looking at the data that we have available, which is what we have available, so I think that's what we have to go on. Adding the pre-K helps, doesn't get the enrollment over 100. It's just won't. If you're adding 30 to 50, it doesn't get you there. Even if you don't move sixth grade out. But what I'm hearing from the community is that that's not desirable by the residents of Cavendish. I think that's a very valid point. And I'm so excited to see people, cheeks and seats, if you can excuse the profanity, at the meetings. Because I think we need more of that. The more people we can get here and hear what we're talking about and share their opinions. It's the only way we're going to be able. You do 1,000 surveys, it's only going to get a small fraction of people, and you don't even know what they're understanding as what. So the only way I feel like I can really get solid community feedback is by the community coming and talking to us. So thank you. Tell your friends. Really appreciate it. I was wondering, I think adding pre-K to Cavendish helps Cavendish. I think that's, no. Doesn't do anything for Chester.
Well, if they have access to it, parents would utilize it.
Right.
It's not,
Yeah.
I think that's a good community asset.
Oh, no, totally. I meant in terms of the current overcrowding, it doesn't solve that issue in
No.
that building. I was wondering, have we thought about adding space to Chester? Wouldn't it be inexpensive?
It would be inexpensive, actually. You can rent portable classrooms for $1,000 a month.
We talked about that with the first meeting,
We were told we don't need it.
and I can't remember the number, but it was,
$2 million?
For a portable classroom or for an addition?
No, to build an extension that would be suitable.
a brick and mortar, just like the school. And I mean, we all know that's not gonna pass as well.
Right, oh, no, totally.
You're not gonna pass one
But,
right now.
Yeah.
but portable classrooms are available in the Northeast. There is a property in Trinity, in the Northeast. They have them in London. $1,000 a month.
We can't put them in the other ones.
No.
So that's all I was thinking as I was looking through the data, trying to consider this. Is there a way to, I also really appreciate hearing what you were saying, Lane, where the middle school model is shown, proven to help kids. And if we're talking about academic, I mean, Steve, you started by talking about what can we do to improve academic outcomes?
Absolutely.
That seems like something we could do to improve academic outcomes if it's going to keep all of our buildings viable, in my opinion.
I don't think we're talking about only moving the sixth grade.
Oh, yeah, no.
You know, from all schools, it's not the only piece of it, because that's mainly only solving Chester's overcrowding, right? Because that opens up two potential classrooms. But that doesn't fix the whole problem. It would have to be coupled with something else, which is what we thought that's where we were headed. I don't know, Joey, I don't know if you want to discuss your school situation and your thoughts.
So, I mean, we're aware that Chester is overcrowded. If you come to visit, you'll see that I have providers giving their services in hallways, and closets have been cleaned out to make offices, which means I don't have any storage. The fire department has complained that I have equipment in the hallways, equipment for kids with disabilities that we need at the ready, lining our hallways. Our stage is currently being used as our OT space, which is really not optimal, particularly when gym is happening on the other side of the curtain, PE. So a year ago, yesterday, we lost the White House. We were already overcrowded at Chester. And then a year ago yesterday, we lost the White House, which was 2 classrooms and offices, which only compounded the problem, right? So this is we have a dire need. I also have much affection for Cavendish. It's where I started my educational, it's where I started my career. I would never want to see that go, for sure. Wonderful things happen there. Wonderful things also happen in Chester. And I think that our community really gets behind what happens in our school. So, I mean, you talk about a middle school model. Most middle school models are 6-8 models. I was part of a team that transformed the middle school at Floodbrook, changed it to a true middle school model, a 6-8 model, where we revamped the building to create a wing for our middle school and had much success there with programming, opened up a lot more programming for our 6th through 8th grade, and created a true middle school team. So I have seen it work. That's right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was that a K through 8?
That
setting?
building was a K through 8.
My kids went through, older kids went through a K through 8 setting. I like that.
However, I'll share with you that BRSU is looking towards, has an exploratory committee going right now to investigate a centralized middle school. So they're looking towards that. The Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union, our neighbors.
TRSU, I was like, we are?
BRSU.
Thank you,
Sorry. They are actually exploring doing a centralized middle school. What comes of that, who knows? But, so they are also looking towards that. So there's a lot of educationally sound reasons to make a 6 through 8 model, but I do understand the concerns
Can I just ask a question? So what you just described is dire. It has been described as dire. It sounds dire. Shouldn't we put a portable classroom there now so it's not so dire? I don't like hearing about the fire chief being upset and dangerousness and closets, and that makes me very, very, very.
We already have a storage container in it.
Oh.
Portable classrooms are not an educationally sound solution. They
That's
are
what you just
temporary
described.
solutions for, catastrophes. And I'd rather keep my cohesive community in the building than throw a few trailers out back. It separates folks, who then goes into the trailer. So you would easily say, oh, service providers, but then you're segregating a marginalized community into a separate space, and that's not okay.
And you're making it so people know who is who. And that's-
No, it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to put special education. There's a half a dozen in London. It looks like it's a maze of portable buildings. And, these companies build them to last. They're intended to be rented.
So the ones in Londonderry, one of them is the collaborative, which is separate from the school. They have nothing to do with the school. It's a separate entity. And the other one is offices that don't really provide services for students. So,
They've been there.
and
for
they're not
years.
ideal.
They've
They're
been there
not
for years. I mean, we're not.
fond of them either.
I would love to do a $2 million building and move away from investing in this. I would love to see K through 8 at Chester. See K through 8 at, I think that was an incredible suggestion.
Have folks talked about the team? So, and this is something that the board might kind of put in the back of the minds to think a little bit about. There is the possibility, and again, I'm repeating what I've heard as I'm talking to folks, that shortly there may be $750,000 needed. It is not enough to rebuild the building. But if it's getting you partially of the way to that 2 million, would the board consider trying to do a bond or find the money to cover the other?
To keep that school at K6 or to make that school at K8 and have Cavendish be at K8 and have this.
It's money for a specific purpose. So my understanding, and again, I'll go back and confirm, if it's not used for that purpose, then you don't get it. But so I'm throwing another option on the table, but I personally don't want to step away from middle school and preschool, regardless, like I said, of where, when, or how. I think those are going to be critical to the long-term viability of the district and getting your enrollments back up.
So interesting that you talk about the middle school model and that's better for kids, because that is not what the research showed that we looked at this meeting. And it is not what I'm hearing our community wants. So I'm curious to see, and if you could point me in the direction of some evidence or research to support that, I would love to see.
Honestly, Kate, you're gonna find research to support either argument.
Well, there you go.
I mean, you just, whatever you search for is what you'll find. So I can only speak to what I've seen work, and I've seen that be a very successful model. I also love our K6 school. I would be sad if we lost the 6th grade. But here we are. We don't have enough space.
I want to be very careful in how we describe, the community voices in the survey, because we try to be very clear that the survey was not going to be qualitative in any way. It was only being sent out to families that were on the TRSU website, and then it was, kind of shared in, non-scientifically controlled ways. So there's no way to truly say percentages, and again, then we're going to start getting into those dividing voices, Cavendish doesn't want this, Chester doesn't want this, Baltimore doesn't want this, one person. Andover doesn't want this, so like, I want us to try to, it's not that I in no way am trying to disregard the community, but I also want us to remain focused again, and I'm gonna keep harping on it. We have got to pull it back from my town, your town. It's gotta be what's best for the district kids as a whole. And, you know, I think that, and I don't know, I could be taking the temperature wrong, and we're missing a couple of people, we're missing 3 people, 4 people today. I think what I've heard from the majority of people on the board is, and also from the surveys that were put out, is the 6th grade seems to be a very popular choice. So I would like us as a board to at least collectively look at that. You know, what we would then utilize in Cavendish, you know, whether it be space for students or daycare, preschool, you know, that could also be explored as equally, you know, I don't know, I guess I'm gonna lean to you on for that one, Lee, because I don't know how to create that, what that would look like. It's not our job, actually, but, am I incorrect? I mean, does the board feel like there could at least be some forward movement in looking at this particular option?
No, I just they were interested in spread as a first choice.
Sorry, so some of the first time in the Zoom hearing, you speak, so if you could just speak up and
That's first.
Not
just you.
Not you,
Others.
Others, yeah, not you.
You're doing fine.
Yeah,
I'm just letting you know as the board chair.
all right, speak up. So anyway, so I was saying, you know, based on, you know, again, not scientific, but some survey results that really showed interest in the 6th grades moving into a middle school model, you know, conversations that have happened amongst the board in different dynamics, is there at least support to start discussing that as a viable option?
Not for me.
Yes.
Got my score.
With that being said, the people that are saying no, are you willing to still work with the board? Are you still willing to come to the table and work with us?
I'm willing to come to the table and work because that is my responsibility as a board member, and it is incredibly important for the district and for all of the voices to be heard. I think I will be here to do it. I think I would like to see other, like you just said something that was helpful for me. You said, if this is not the only option. I think moving this, if we move to 6th grade and we brought preschool, those two are still not the only option to keep Cavendish viable. So you're looking at 6th grade, you're looking at preschool, you're looking at redrawing lines in order to make both schools sustainable. And that if, you know, I hope we're ready to have all of the conversations, not just move the 6th graders because it fixes the adjustment.
No, and that's not what I'm suggesting.
No, I know,
But
I
I'm
know,
suggesting
I'm
just
just
some forward movement of the board.
But I would also like to add to, like, moving the 6th graders for spacing is not really the attractive part of that for me. The middle school model, it's something that I've looked at. I think it makes sense. I thought when I moved here, it didn't make sense that it wasn't a 6-8 middle school. I didn't understand it then. I don't still understand why, or what truly the benefit is of not having that 6-8 model and having that, you know, program for that age group to develop through.
When I went to college in Boston, met people from all over the Northeast, all over the country, everyone was like, "What do you mean you only have 2 schools?" Like that 6-8 model is what all of them came from, various degrees of wonderful, brilliant people. So I agree it's something to look into. I totally agree with you, Kate. It can't be the only thing, and I think you're looking at moving 6 kids up, or having just single-digit number of kids out of Cavendish while bringing in double-digit numbers of preschoolers. Like I said before, it still doesn't get you over that 100-kid threshold if that's the threshold. So there's got to be other pieces.
I just, what is there a threshold? Like, I feel like we're like, have this like number, but I mean,
Because
are
the
we?
study committee hasn't finished, they haven't even started meeting yet, but I
The
think that's
commission,
the speculation is that they're gonna do something like that. We don't know what it is.
They literally, it was, the number was actually 150 that they're talking about, but you have to remember, we've got somebody in office here who might want to speak to this. You can see a little bit of the division that's happening, just discussing it here What do you think is going to happen to elected officials if they make it a statewide law?
Right.
So the odds that they're not going to shy away from the outpouring of dissatisfaction that we're going to hear is it's just, so there's that political aspect. Yes, something has to be done, but there's other ways to do it. Like I said, I'm on the bandwagon at some point in the future. The way to solve problems is similar to one of the pieces that you talked about, is that each district, builds, one or two new schools that encompass all the students. Get rid of all the, the 350 other buildings that we've got. They're nice, they're new, they're brand new, they're efficient. And so you're saving money that way. But the way the education fund works is that unless all districts do it, there's no benefit. Right. If we do it, we get a little benefit and all the other taxpayers get a little benefit.
And the kids lose. I mean, we can agree that if the kids lose in that model, we're gonna travel all distances.
Agreed.
I just imagine that we're gonna have babysitting hubs with teachers being beamed in via, teleclassrooms in the next 10 years. I'm not saying that's what we're gonna do. I'm just saying that's what I imagine.
I'm more afraid of the state making some sweeping decision because heavy-handed state involvement is, we don't want it, not that we can necessarily avoid it, but
Blame us for everything. They do.
So your solution is to our own and stuff.
I also want to say, just because folks were sharing their experience of the middle school model where you came from, I'm a lifelong Vermonter. I went to school in Vermont. I went to a kindergarten through 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th through 12th, unified high school that was 7th through 12, and we all loved it. We loved being in our elementary
Oh,
school. So
I love to hear
as Joey
too.
says,
Yeah,
you
no,
can
absolutely.
find research on both sides. You can find stories on both sides, and I think this is the model that we had here for however long, and I don't know, there's going to be a lot of resistance or a lot of support
Kindergarten's in this school.
with the PCBs.
Oh, look at me.
See, we all like each other.
In our last meeting, we talked about putting together a letter explaining what a choice for Chester parents considering.
Steve, I'm
having- I've talked about a letter that would go to everyone, but specifically clarify to Chester parents about first that they have the choice to send their kids to Cavendish, and then why they might. I'm asking, how's that?
Well, need a little more board input, but I'd be happy to draft something like that. I haven't, but I certainly could for
The next meeting was my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, the next board meeting, which is the 14th of August.
And it would
Yeah,
make
perfect.
sense to me that that also come from this district, not necessarily from board. Maybe I'm thinking differently, but that seems like a school letter, like
Well,
sending out
collaborate.
something.
I think we had discussed it being on the kind of like the hot topics, like,
So I thought we'd send a letter to all of them.
let's see. We did agree on it, I'm just not entirely sure if it got captured in the meeting minutes, but we had talked about it being like the hot topics and that sort of thing. So if you could have something to show the board and then we can go from there.
just to be clear on deadlines, we're talking about August 15th or 2 weeks from
August 15th.
Beautiful. That was my understanding of
Yeah.
it too, so just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something.
You're not very.
I'm usually good with deadlines, but not. But yeah, I can do that for sure. Well, Katie and I.
Okay. So, I think we've kind of identified, we're gonna find opinions and research and thoughts that are equally gonna bolster each side's, I hate to use the word side, but each side is the decision making. So, and it's not an option to just kind of become stagnant. It's not, we could delay this until everybody's kids are out of school and it's nobody's problem and it's a whole new board. That's not what we need to do. We need to shoulder this, we need to address it, and we need to address it in a way that's gonna be, addressing a pretty critical issue. So how do people see moving forward? We have to take some steps forward. I'm not saying we have to make a definitive decision. We have to take steps.
The last thing we need to do is to rush this without having the data to support these options, without having a level of civic engagement that we expect, and that the outcome we receive following some of these suggestions. We have much more work to do.
What kind of data are you looking for specifically?
And I still want to know the financials. I appreciate what Cheryl is saying and that she can't do a financial analysis without an option to look at, but I don't, you mentioned, you said $60 to $100,000 to make a middle school model. That is the first time I've heard a cost associated with this idea of moving the sixth graders over there. I want to know what it is going to cost to make that decision. And, are we redistributing our resources in a way that is not financially responsible, or it's going to cost us more money than our taxpayers will pay? It took us 3 times to get a budget passed this last year. And is that where our community wants us investing? I want to see if these options are financially responsible and viable. I want to see, are these options going to benefit these students? Are these options going to improve educational outcomes through some sort of research? I guess I want to see that, but I don't feel. Again, that's the first time I've heard a number that there was going to be a cost. That's moving the sixth graders over here, and that's one aspect of it. That's what building a lab. That's one aspect of it. What else is there in that we don't know about, because nobody has mentioned associated costs of this until exactly this moment?
I can give you some.
Can we ask?
Cheryl can't just.
No, not on a budget level. We were gonna get more information of, I can't remember it verbatim, but of what that would look like, as far as putting the sixth grade up here. Because remember, Pam O'Neill had shared during one of our meetings.
That's right, you're right.
So I believe we had asked what that would look like, what, like, programming changes. There was quite a bit of information that we had asked at the last meeting, and I can't remember.
We also asked for a budget analysis 6 months ago about all of our towns and there was, I can't even remember the full details of the analysis, but we asked for what, because I remember everybody was saying Cavendish, if Cavendish leaves, what will it cost if Cavendish leaves? And I'm like, stop targeting Cavendish, what if everybody leaves?
I remember this.
Right, but so we asked for that however many months ago, and that was to inform this conversation, and we haven't seen that. So like, there's no data to support any of the decisions.
I think it was presented at a meeting.
It was.
It was?
There was.
Yeah, it was presented. It was, I remember the
I must not have
spreadsheet.
been there.
It was a spreadsheet that got distributed.
Which I
I haven't seen it.
think Cheryl still has. I don't know if I ever got the email.
Yeah, and
So I never-
and Cheryl,
Spreadsheet and an associated.
and Cheryl discussed it.
Because remember we talked about it, or I brought it up as Cavendish, and then it was like, better yet, the end of it, left the district.
Right, we wanted to see
We went
all
for
of this.
every town.
So she's done that? I must have missed
I
that.
believe she did.
Okay, I'll go back and look through the minutes and see.
Okay.
I apologize, Cheryl, then. I wasn't here.
Oh, I mean, I can give you basic in general. You're gonna have upfront costs potentially if there's any kind of programmatic changes that come in, if they have to buy materials, so probably I would plan on 30 to 50,000. You've got the science classroom, there might be a small amount depending upon what happens with busing. The assumption would be is that some teachers would follow the kids. Right? So there shouldn't be a big change in terms of, staffing, which is usually the biggest hit in terms of budget wise. In terms of, building a preschool to get about 20 kids, it is personnel intensive. You're talking probably in the 200 to 250,000. Because that's what it cost us when we built it at Randall.
So like $500,000 to move the sixth grade over here for a preschool.
But if it attracts 50, 60 folks to come to town that weren't here before, and you're getting the state yield on each of those kids, that's
the NASDAQ proposal was fascinating because they talked about meeting with town clerks and looking into real estate transactions, and first and second home buyers, talking to real estate agents to look at trends in the communities. This is what the organization of this work does. So I'd like to see some of that information.
And I'd like to see, so $500,000 to move to sixth graders. What is the associated cost of redrawing the lines and having some Chester kids come over to Cavendish? That is a,
And when NASDAQ did that study, it was before all these increases in government. NASDAQ did a study, but it's before all these increases that the state has put in. We didn't have the information on the CLA, we didn't have the information on 14% increase.
So population changes.
Changes. I mean, how can, with all that money going out, are people fleeing? Or are people coming? How many people are coming? Or what type of people are coming? Are we getting more out-of-staters than what we normally do? Or are we gonna get some families, younger families, which I highly doubt.
Is there more homelessness? Are people relocated?
The one concern, and just again in the back of folks' minds, is if you redistrict and you take students that have been in a school for a while and you transition, if you've got students, especially that are on education plans and things like that, that having routines and knowing, that have established a relationship with teachers, they know who's who in the building, you might have some problems for a year or two while they kind of establish.
I'm just saying the study that NASDAQ did when they supposedly reached out to town clerks and asking how many people are coming in. I remember that question specifically because Andover had numerous sales, but only 6 in 10 years were actually locals that moved in.
and
It's
also,
not good
there are
numbers.
kids on specialized plans in the sixth grade who will also have those problems when they move to the seventh grade. So those are comparable problems that you're going to have with any change that you make, because anytime you make a change,
So, don't be-
things have to settle, and it becomes, so that feels to me like, yeah, that's gonna be part of this story, is the kids that are in that cohort, whatever we do, are gonna have a hard time. So we better darn well make sure we're doing this, because we absolutely have to, because that's gonna be a hard time for those kids in the cohort.
It's kind of a side thing, where it speaks to with over 30% of kids in the district, some kind of special education, the impact is going to be huge. Everybody I talked to says that the special education programs at the high school need improvement. Interestingly, they say that they've gotten better with John Bradley, but there's still great need to improve those schools.
I don't know how to move forward, that's your question. I don't want to be a part of not helping move forward, but I don't know what the next is. That's all, I just don't know.
Nobody knows.
Well, that's why we keep talking in circles. We don't actually know.
I'd like to get some information from this commission. I mean, they're going to have some guidance on if there's something to do within their guidance for to achieve our target.
Sorry.
I always screw up. The commission,
of education.
exactly. And these reports are coming on September 15th and December 15th.
But they won't be statute at that point. They won't be requirements, right?
No,
They're just
indication.
reports. So they're just like guidance that'll help say, this is where we're headed, Vermont schools.
It's concerning. Legislative commission, to me, is not a comforting term.
You should follow in our legislative committees. Some of the ones that come, you should.
Yeah.
I'm on a
Everybody should.
legislative commission. Very good.
Okay. I think it'd be helpful to get the programming associated with the sixth grade as part of, not the only option. I would like to know what kind of programming changes would be made to add the sixth grade to a middle school model. I think, we just had a friend's daughter visiting from Colorado. She's in seventh grade and in AP classes and could graduate the same year as my daughter, but she's 2 grades below, like that kind of stuff. Like, what are we looking at to move to sixth grade here? What are we offering? What kind of middle school model that's going to attract new families, as well as other options to keep Cavendish viable? I mean, I think that's a big piece, right? That's what we need.
That's something that we think that.
Yeah, they're doing a year-end closeout, so I know they're busy.
Very
They should be
busy.
wrapping up.
And then maybe, I don't want to promise staff, I don't know, like, what's their 12-month staff or 9-month staff, but is Pam 12-month staff? Does anyone know? It just might be,
Guidance director.
yeah,
She's been pretty good about coming in.
so it might be worthwhile having Pam attend our next meeting, so she might be able to address some of what that would look like.
Getting financial implications or predicted budgets, which I understand we can't do, for both options, moving to sixth grade and moving Chester kids. I would personally like to be able to compare the costs associated with both the concepts.
Say that one more time.
So getting the cost of moving the sixth graders,
Yep.
but also getting the cost of keeping the sixth graders in each building and moving kids from Chester to Cavendish. So redistricting. What that would cost.
Like my phone, 198.
So when you say the redistricting, is that saying moving the sixth grade to Cavendish?
No, I'm just
Moving
saying
the
redrawing
lines.
the
Okay,
lines so
redrawing.
that Chester kids are coming to Cavendish.
Someone said that maybe Pam is online, is that?
She maybe, it's just, I phone 198, so if it is Pam, we might want her to rename herself.
And maybe she doesn't want to.
No, I'm on. I'm on.
You asked me.
Oh, she's really quiet.
No, okay, I'm on. Can you guys hear me?
Barely.
Just barely.
Oh,
Hold on a second, they're gonna turn up the volume, Pam.
all right. And I'm trying on mine. I've been watching. I just can't get my name on it now that we
There you
switched
go.
over to some Zoom thing. So I've been watching and listening. Okay. You just can't really see me, but so just want to clarify, were you expecting me to present something to you guys, or you want me to get things together to present?
Sounds like maybe there was some expectation, but I don't know if there was a clear directive. So if it would be something that you could possibly put together, that would be helpful.
Oh, yes, I can definitely put it together. I know that I meant at the last meeting that I was at in Cavendish was if they wanted it, but I didn't. But I apologize if it wasn't clear that you did want it. I can certainly pull information together. I mean, what is it specific? Is it programming and what it would look like for the sixth grade to join our middle school programming? Is that what we're?
Yeah, I think Katie was saying that, just what it would look like in regards to costs. Programming.
Cost, programming, space, like what would it look like to have them all, Lane mentioned, needing a science lab, like, is that, like, what are the things that would be needed for sixth grade to come here? And what is, I guess, just,
Maybe define the need, that would
Yeah.
also then maybe help us define some cost.
there you go.
No, absolutely. I can work with my administration and Joey, maybe we can, I think, and with Lane as well, because I think that it's been brought up, there's some licensing issues that could potentially be impacted too. So yeah, when you'd want that information and presentation?
We have a scheduled meeting on the 25th, but then we're also probably gonna pick some dates for August. So, maybe in the next 1 to 2 meetings would be helpful. And we're meeting Really every 2 weeks at this point.
Yes, I have a
Yeah, in August would be better because that would also give us time at the admin retreat.
Okay.
To be able to to talk about it.
All right.
And I also, so you just said, you sparked something in my mind.
Is that good or bad?
Let's see. Sixth graders, moving to sixth graders from Chester to Cavendish. What about moving to sixth graders from Chester to Cavendish? What about saying, I mean, I don't know the viability of that. I know moving schools and then moving schools again would be very difficult, but I wonder about the viability.
It would interfere with the, potential mills. I don't know, there's other concerns that folks may have. Again, I'm kind of new.
Yeah.
So
That would
I guess
be
I just-
half the population at Cavendish would be sixth graders
Mommy. Fine for the sixth graders.
and not very fun for your kindergarten.
And I think there's what, 40-ish sixth graders at Chester University?
This year, I think 45, 46, something like that. And so it's a similar number for next year.
would that solve the problem? I mean, it would probably make it better, but was that enough students to, because I did the walkthrough with you and yeah, you were first in it.
Which holiday?
If we're talking about eliminating sixth grade from Chester, we're opening up 2 learning spaces, 2 classrooms. That would be big steps into solving problems.
But you'd still need a space for the office space for the interventionist.
Well, we could subdivide those classrooms, kind of the way we have our one room right now with our special educators crammed in there. So those classrooms could be subdivided if we needed to do that.
How many kindergartners do you have coming in?
I
I wonder, less impact if you, I don't know, I'm just spitballing, I'm off.
We'll try and move the kids twice again.
2
Fifth
transfers.
grade to, from 5th grade to Cavendish, to 6th grade, Fort Green Mountain.
But if you did kindergarten, they'd be through Cavendish until sixth.
They just stay in the
I also think if you have a pre-K that you move into Cavendish, the kids that start pre-K in Cavendish are probably gonna want to stay in Cavendish.
Again, we have certified pre-K
Yes.
teachers and schools.
I was wondering about adding pre-K and moving kindergarten to Cavendish exclusively. I don't know how many of those kindergartners are riding the bus now. I would think that parents are having to drive them. I don't know how many kindergartners would elect to go somewhere else if all of a sudden their parents had to bring them to Cavendish instead of bringing them to Chester. Definitely would be a bigger fan of that than moving to 6th grade. Or having kids move from 5th to 6th and then 7th doesn't make a lot of sense.
Like conceptually, the idea of moving students from Chester to Cavendish is what is appealing to me. I don't love the idea of Chester kindergartners having to schlep to Cavendish any more than I like the idea of kindergartners from Cavendish having to schlep. I don't like that word. Like, that's a long drive. It took us 30 minutes to get here from my house. It's a long drive.
It's probably a possible solution. The other possibility is if you went that way, you were just kind of chatting as preschool.
Done that.
Yeah, when I went to.
PCBs.
You gotta get the PCBs.
I get 4 years ago. I mean, I wouldn't send my kindergarten. I don't have. That's fair.
No, I mean, people talking is what needs to happen. It's just, again, we're just kind of devolving into, what will work and this, then it won't work, and this will work and then it won't work. I'm trying to find a way to move the committee effectively, the board forward in solving this issue. And I feel like we continually repeat, there'll be a public comment section. We continually repeat this at every board meeting. And, I think my frustration is and again, what I'm hearing is everything's fine as long as our group isn't touched. Everything's fine as long as we don't do this. Everything's fine. And I don't know how to get us into a different mindset. Maybe I'm kind of failing at that, is trying to get people to look at this again, not towns, districts.
I will say you are misinterpreting. That's what we're hearing.
No, this is a summary of the entire process. Everything has, always kind of seemed to revolve around as long as we don't do this. And that has moved, that target has moved throughout this entire process, but, you know,
You want me to get started?
that would be welcome.
I would charge the board with making a decision tonight. The decision is when the drop dead date is for making a decision. On October 1st, regardless of where things stand, the board is going to walk away from that meeting with a final decision. And that way, that gets people motivated to do the work, the research. I'm happy to provide what I can get my hands on if people are asking questions and stuff. But that puts the sense of urgency.
We should have a full board for that.
So you could vote to give a recommendation to the board that way.
And I mean, I think that's literally extending the deadline that we all agreed on as a board by a month. So I'm happy to, you know, bring that to the
pulled that out
board.
of my
Yeah,
mind, so-
no, that's great. No, you know, because I agree. I mean, like, you know, we can string this along for years if we try hard enough. So I think if we do say we have to make a decision and here's the time frame. I do, it's gonna create deadlines, which I think most people are well under.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And to your earlier comments, Adrian, I think it kind of goes back to what Katie was saying a little bit ago. I think what we're missing here is like a real vision of what this will be. I'm a narrative-driven person, and I think change is really scary. And if instead we're working towards this vision for the district, and I think getting some clear ideas from Pam, from Wayne, from our administrators about what this would look like will help everyone imagine that vision, maybe see the benefits in it instead of seeing parts of it that are scary.
When you say vision, do you mean it in regards to a particular idea or do you mean it in regards to goals? Because in my mind, my vision is creating, sustainability, and equity.
Yeah, no, I
So like, but that, I just need to know what you mean.
Yeah, I think for me, hearing Lane's comments earlier about the benefits of the middle school model, that seemed like a good vision for me. Something that we as a board and as a district would work towards that would be beneficial to our students. How exactly that's done programmatically, in terms of space, in terms of teachers moving around, having those specifics at the next meeting, I think would help move things forward. And the financial cost as well. About, okay, it's a great idea, but it's going to cost X. But I also get, Cheryl can't just pull numbers out of a hat for some vision that she makes up in her head because she hasn't been told what to make numbers up about.
And it's not a small amount
no,
of work, so
no.
I don't want to charge her with doing
I
this.
spent all day
until
doing
we-
bids.
yeah.
I'd rather not think about it.
And I think having that information would be exceptionally helpful for Pam and Lee and the church as a whole. As long as we as the board don't go into that micromanagement lane, we're not developing the program. We're not developing what this looks like. That's their job.
Yeah, so we should, I think you're right, and that's part of maybe the discussion tomorrow, is your job is for us to tell you what the cost is going to be. Give you a general overview. It's our job to figure out the specifics and get it in place. That's the information. Yes. So you shouldn't be sweating that piece. It's our job to do it, not screw it up.
So I agree with you entirely, and it is not just the cost that is our responsibility. It includes the educational outcome and the students. So I don't want to develop a middle school program. I have no idea how to do that. I do want to make sure that whatever you develop and what we sanction is what is in the best interest of the districts.
And I get maybe if we start being a little bit more definitive in our requests, like I want data. Specifically, what do you want? I want to make sure. How do you want to make sure? So that we're not just, kind of charging people with these, pretty broad statements. What exactly are people looking for that is going to, suffice for data for you or what's going to make you feel like you're sure. That would be helpful. So if you could come back to the next meeting with some specifics about that.
I will just say that's out of my scope. I need a professional to tell me that this is, I want to see some research to show that this is the right thing for the Green Mountain Unified School District. I don't know that. I will not ever know that. I don't have access to the research to be able to find that out. I don't have an academic access to articles anymore. I want that to come here. I want our superintendent to say, this is how much it's going to cost to do this program that I recommend because X, Y, and Z.
And if it doesn't, if it changes the model that you're kind of envisioning, which is, kind of leaving Cavendish whole K-6 or increasing it to K-3, if it's said that way, are you going to be on board with it?
We'll see. I have to also couple that with the other dearth of implications that the decisions we're making have. So if it comes and it costs this much and it is in the best interest of all of our communities and the students and families, probably. But if not, I don't think I can. But I'm open to being a part of it. I don't want to be obstructionist. I just want to be right.
And then how does, we're short for, but I think if I remember right, in regards to date, deadlines, everybody kind of was unanimous. How do we feel about an October 1 drop dead date?
It feels irresponsible to me to make a deadline at this stage. I get it. I get what you're saying. But if it's, we will have completed our research by October 1st, and that's fine. If it's, we are deciding to move the sixth graders by October 1st, I think that's irresponsible. At least for me to say, to vote.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to summarize this a little bit. So for the next meeting, Pam and Lane are going to be together. Sorry, she's in August. August, sorry. Yes, August. Sorry, Pam. You're talking, but you're muted, I believe.
She is muted.
Sorry.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you. We can't hear you, Pam.
All right, here we go. I think that, we could certainly put something preliminary together for the 25th to outline some things. I think that it could be more detailed in that first week in August. But Lane and I can connect as early as tomorrow or early next week, and
I'm happy to wait until August, so it's more thorough. Yeah.
I'd hate to go halfway.
No, for the August meetings, yeah. Yeah, we're happy to wait until August, Pam.
Okay. Okay.
Pam mentioned getting
All right.
together, Amy and Joey, I would love to see Dale on that conversation.
I think all of the presidents would be invited, I don't think. Exclusionary. Huh?
He wasn't mentioned, so I just want to make sure that it isn't.
Okay, so in the August meetings, we will have some more programmatic financial information, a broad overview. People will show up with more specifics in regards to what you're looking for. I don't, again, I need a decision maybe about, do you want me to bring the October 1 deadline to the board as a suggestion? That would be the August 15th meeting is when that decision could be brought forward. Yes.
I just have a couple questions about setting a deadline and what goes into why we're picking a date. What's the drop dead for? We gotta have this. If we're gonna make a decision, it has to be done before next fiscal cycle. So where does that fall? Where's the bookend on that?
So my guess is you typically do your vote based upon how laws of the state are in January that finalizes your budget.
So we normally start budgetary discussion.
So October would be really as late as we can push making a decision that would affect next budget cycle.
You could push it later, you could push it in January, but it would be fun.
Yeah, I don't want to go into
We
a.
need time to go.
But
I would say absolute latest, and I don't want to, would probably be Thanksgiving.
And I think, yeah, so that's, as far as me processing, do we want to set a date, what is it? I don't want to be at the 11th hour, because that puts the budget planning in chaos. And what's realistic to get the data that we've identified, things that, what are asked, right? What is this going to cost, and what does it look like? To get, you know, cohesive response to that. So is that October 1? If so, I support it. If it's end of October,
Well, I think Pam and Lane bringing some more information to us, even in August, is going to help us start making some more concrete thoughts in moving forward. Okay. So, oh no, so I was gonna say, you know, at the August 15th meeting, I can bring forward that suggestion and we can have a, you know, discussion about it and set a time.
I'm curious that we have a lot of more refined concepts, but we don't have specific structures to fit those concepts. So there's still a few things in the works as far as alternatives. And once we have some costs associated with the shape of this, that we ought to refine approaches. But I think that the ones that are currently on the table will get refined and others may get. I see that.
Will get refined and others will what?
Be added.
It's a possibility.
Definitely.
Okay, and then kind of defining vision. So other than Kate and Steve right now, it sounds like the board is envisioning a middle school model, potentially a preschool edition. Does that sound like a good vision to start with?
I don't think it's the only piece of the puzzle here, and I think that's
It's a step forward.
it's a thing we can all look forward to.
Can I just ask, we're envisioning a middle school model and a potential preschool model, or are we envisioning a model of, I just am struck by the word potential for preschool and not potential. I'm sorry, I don't really.
Yeah, no, don't get stuck on the word. It wasn't intentional.
Okay.
I'm envisioning both.
Thank you.
Potential.
Okay. All right.
It's a very difficult decision.
Yeah,
And
no,
I
understand
make
that.
difficult decisions by verbalizing things.
No,
There you go. That's how I process.
Okay. Is there anything else that people want to talk about or bring up? So we're gonna moving to the next public.
Thank you all. I just want to say thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we're gonna move into the next public comment section. Emily, you just watch for hands, please. I think Sarah had your hand up first, and Sarah.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Stoll, and I am from Pottersville. And I have a couple of things to say. In my memory, this committee started out over cost concerns. I think, Scott, that was something that you were talking about, because we all got nervous about that conversation, right? Somewhere along the line, we mentioned the demographics. Now it's a committee to restructure, right size, and all of a sudden you're visioning. If the crisis is, if the immediate crisis is a crisis of helping Chester make sure their kids have enough space and their teachers have enough space, and I'll add to it, maybe helping Cavendish to gain some more students, you can come up with a temporary solution. Is it ideal? No. Was it ideal to have everybody have masks? Certainly not. Was it ideal to have buildings flooded out and have kids come here? No. Was it ideal in Irene when the softball field got wasted and kids had to travel up to our fabulous field that is now wasted? No. But you come up with temporary situations to crisis, and you take the time you need to look for a vision. And so if one of the results of, oh, we have too many kids and in one building, not enough in another, or in two buildings, we have two buildings that don't have enough kids, we have PCVs, et cetera. We have something that needs an immediate fix. Joey can't wait until next budgetary season, I'm guessing, right? It sounds like your crisis is super immediate. So separate the two issues. Visioning is great. If we'll know more about PCVs, et cetera, but this committee has morphed so many times. And I was listening in and amongst Vermont's various dead spaces, Adrian, when you started off and set out what you think the committee is now. And I appreciated that. But I look at it and I think it's morphed. And so all of a sudden, it's a committee to decide whether or not we want a middle school model, which is not necessarily the only way to solve, and certainly not the way to solve an immediate crisis that we have of overcrowding. So I want to suggest that we separate those two things. Come up with something that is going to not be ideal. Some kids, some teachers, some administrators are going to have a hard time. Either Chester, they can go it alone, right? They're already having a hard time. Or we can choose a slightly different hard time. We move somebody to Cavendish, or we take Chester parents on a tour of Cavendish and see if we get enough people who take it on their own. Or I don't know what, I'll buy a tent and we can put all the kids under a tent, right? That's an immediate solution that is less than ideal, but it solves temporarily a demographic issue that we have. Then you've got time to vision. And when I hear you talking about visioning, and I think, Lane, it was you that brought it out, like if we had a middle school model, maybe we'd get 50 or 60 more families to town. I do get a little anal retentive, must I say, is this town getting 50 or 60 more families, that's awesome. But Cavendish is struggling. Like, and our crisis, and I think all of us went through it differently, and kudos to Julie Hantz for however she got like 6 million people to Chester, right? But we have a housing crisis. People can't afford to move into town. Like, we need something to attract folks too. So I want a vision to think about our district. And, you know, we're kind of crazy. Our school district is one and our voting district is another. So like, I got to think about Wethersfield, or I'm hoping that, you know, they're thinking about us because that's how the votes are going to go down. So my suggestion is separate it, solve the immediate crisis for Joey. It's not ideal. It never will be. And take some time. If the middle school model is the best, don't consider it, sure, academics and all of that, that's the most important, but consider the other factors that contribute to community, to family life, to academics, the things that make us strong enough to support our children and then our elders.
Thank you. It's this gentleman, and then we'll go to whoever's online.
First, I'm honored that you guys had us here. I actually want to let you know that not only, we basically have the entire Windsor County Senate team here and representatives here to listen to everything that's going on tonight. And all of you brought out some really great points, and myself, and we're not here to offer any suggestions, just learn at this time what's going on and let you know that we'd like to attend your other meetings and offer any help we can. Just bear in mind, though, that we're candidates, we're not incumbents. So, you know, we're here to offer whatever help we can, but we want to assure you that we want to listen and help you work through all of this, because this lady, actually all of you gave some really good points. She was fabulous. I mean, all of you were. And that's what we want to do. We want to listen to all of you and help you as elected officials work through these problems that you're facing right now.
Are you candidates or elected officials?
Right now, we are.
All of you are candidates.
We're all candidates, and like I said, we have the entire Windsor County Senate team here. We have a number of the House of Representative people here. Basically, all of Windsor County is covered with the people that we have here tonight. And like I said, what we want to do is offer you right now any help we can, but you know, listen to it and offer any help we can. Guarantee you, if we're elected, this is what we want to do. We want to come to meetings like this and really listen to the problems all of you are facing, and help you work through.
Thank you.
You know, any questions you may have, or like I said, you can ask any of us here.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for having me.
I think I saw Wes Williams and then. Yeah, Wes Williams.
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, this has been going on for a while, the whole restructuring thing. I was hoping there was going to be a decision made by now, so the next school session wouldn't continue with problems at Chester Andover. Um, anyway, at any point, the fire marshal could come in, basically close Chester Andover down. So I think that's the biggest concern right now. Um, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Cavendish people are against the sixth grade going up to Green Mountain. I guess I don't understand what the huge pushback is against that, if that's the common sense and logical thing to do. I think the board needs to make a decision, make it soon, and use common sense and logic and what's best for the community as a whole. And I'm just really concerned that nothing's been done yet. Thanks.
Jen Devereaux, Cavendish. It's not an us versus them thing. I hate that mentality. I hate that even being put out there. However, it is a miles and distance thing. Certainly, you know, my kids kind of through all this. A Cavendish bus ride for us was an hour and a half just in Cavendish. So would I want my kindergartner going from here to from Chester to Cavendish? No, I would hate that idea. Was I a parent who was able to drive my kid every day? No, I was not. I had to go to work in the opposite direction. So we get the challenges and we understand that it's not an us versus them, but there is the reality of distance and people sometimes forget to look at the map when they're doing things. So we appreciate the time you're taking to think that through.
I don't know who was first between the two of you.
I'm Andrea Murray from Weathersfield, and I'm a seventh grader in Weathersfield who was before, last year was in Springfield, so they have to combine school in Weathersfield, and Springfield, they went first and fifth, and then went sixth, seventh. Those sixth graders, they have to be that. And it's just how it is. They're just really immature. And I would just have you consider that, even though the models are national, think about Weathersfield and Vermont and how we raise our kids. And they're just, they don't mature as fast as big city kids, I would say. So I actually had a couple of comments. So redistricting, you should be able to map all of your students, consider, because it feels like you're talking a lot of potentials and possibles, but there's no specifics like you were saying. So if you are considering redistricting, you should be able to have a map with plotted homes to be able to say, okay, if we drew a line here, we get this many students going this direction, we would travel. How many of those students are special needs students? Is that going to add more of a problem to Cavendish than you considered? Because now you have an added expense and more support, more occupational therapy, all of those things you consider. I don't know how many students are in Cavendish, what total?
I think 72 enrolled currently.
So if you're sixth graders
Already.
and did a progressive K through eighth grade, now you have seventh grade, and now I don't know if that's even possible. This sixth graders stay there, now you have kindergarten through seventh grade. The year after that, you're building your model for your eighth graders. Now you have a K through 8 school and your pre-K. In 3 years, you have your. So that's just, and nobody's traveling. And the Chester, I agree with what you hear saying, it's an absolute immediate need. And portables aren't ideal, but it was a couple of days ago, a few years ago, since I went to school, but portables were commonplace. They can be amazing and fun, and for some kids, especially the AP kids, or they like to be a little bit further away. The art students like to be further away. Let them paint the portables. They can make it their own and make it beautiful and fun, and you can do colored pathways, and this is the 8th grade portable, or the 6th grade, this is the 5th grade, or the library was in the portables. There's a way to make it still connected. All the kids are in school, and you have a portable building that's the library, or what have you. You can connect them by making those portables not brown buildings that are over there, but bring them into the school, even if it's just storage. But so even if it's temporary, 1 year, you just rent them for a year, and then we have a solution, because we don't know if your school's going to change, or if the modeling changes to 150 students, and you have to shut schools, then all of this is an incredible waste of time, because you're going to shut your schools.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you might be a little bit, I know you need to make immediate decisions, but like she said, emergencies and just my observation.
Thank you.
Sure. Wendy McNaughton, I want to say thank you first for taking the time tonight to figure out what we actually need to know. That is what is most frightening to me, is thinking we don't know the academic or the financial pros or cons. And so hearing that you're going to get some of those specifics for us is very reassuring. I appreciate that. Number one, thank you. Number two, the Vermont League of Middle Schools motto is that middle school is not a building, it is a philosophy. And so as you're thinking about making a middle school model, consider the fact that it doesn't have to be building back. Perhaps our 5th and 6th grades in Chester and Cavendish start following a type of schedule or a pattern or a model that will then later be followed. Perhaps we move up through 8th grade and middle school starts before you get to Green Mountain. There's lots of different ways to do a middle school model. I teach middle school. I love 7th and 8th graders, but I teach it in a school that is pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. And I almost took a job teaching it in Springfield, except that that's a population of entirely 13-year-olds. And when 13-year-olds don't get to learn about community from people of other ages, they don't develop into the community that they're going to need to be part of later in the same way. I also just want to make sure that we sincerely consider or reconsider the idea of moving Chester students to Cavendish. I know a family in Andover specifically who said, oh, that would have been a great idea. I wish I'd known that before I enrolled my younger child into preschool in Chester. I would have done that. So I think that's about giving families more information and more time. And if we take care of Chester first, maybe there is more time to make a presentation like that people will understand better than they understood that survey. And just moving based on that survey is really worrisome, because it was how many times more people that responded from Chester than Cavendish. And so we're operating on this unweighted, unbalanced feedback that does not show what people in all of the schools really would be interested in doing. We talk about wanting to benefit all the schools, and at this point, and hopefully we'll have other research or other information, but at this point, the idea of moving 6th grade up, from what I have seen, does not benefit Cavendish at all. And so let's just see what we can do that would, like you say, benefit all the schools, or show me how it can benefit all of the schools. Because right now, from what I know, it wouldn't. Thank you.
Hello, B.L. Coffin. Yes, I'm one of the state rep candidates, but I'm also from Cavendish. And I don't want to see any of our schools closed for whichever reasons. For the fire marshal shutting Chester Andover down. For this school that needs repairs needs to be done. Cavendish. It's the heart of the community there. But again, the immediate need is the overpopulation. If this board, if we can move students to Cavendish, those 6th graders, move them to Cavendish, is it ideal? No. Get them there. That solves a problem. Add some students to Cavendish for the short term as well. That gives the board more time to look at redrawn lines, other options, but also for what the next legislature does. Because if the next legislature decides to arbitrarily choose a number, they can then start arbitrarily choosing schools and telling us what to do. We need to react as a community first, all the schools. We are a school district. There's different voting district, school district, but we all need to work together as not a us and them, as a, how can we help each other in this community? And fixing the overcrowding problem, bring those students to Cavendish for the short term, even if that's how the problem works out, solves an issue immediately that will benefit the children. And on top of anything else, above that all, this board, the schools, it's for the children. It's not for us as parents if it's convenient for us. It's what's best for the children. And giving them a place to learn without being overcrowded is definitely should be a priority. We can't get sidetracked. We would then buy time to find a different solution. That's all I.
I think I just really want to quickly dispel something before it grows into a misinformation.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, please.
We have been inspected by the fire marshal. We passed inspection. Nobody's closing us down. Everything is as it should be to pass inspection by the fire marshal, just so we're perfectly clear on that. They've been through our building as late as this spring and we passed inspection, just so.
Okay.
Shut us down. The fire marshal is not gonna shut us down. 4 minutes. Thank you.
For 12 years.
All right. Is there anybody else online that wants to speak? I just want to make sure there's nobody else here.
I just, first of all, my name is Jane, and Adrian, I want to thank you for keeping us focused. Because as an unbiased person sitting here, I heard a lot about Cavendish, and I have in the last few meetings. And I think it's true, it's about the district, and we have to look at everything as a whole. I will admit, I did fill out the survey, and I'm glad that I came to the same conclusion that many of you did here tonight, in that I couldn't make a decision because I didn't have any numbers. And unless I see numbers, I have to look at it from an economic perspective, because education is economic policy, and it impacts everyone. So we have to stay focused on all parties. And I think we do need a PCP. I heard that as a dead end many times. You need to get numbers on how much it costs.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something on what Wendy said, because I saw you shake your head, Adrian, so perhaps you can clarify. You can't.
I'm not gonna back and forth.
Oh, okay, well, then I will just say, like, I strongly hope we divide these two issues and deal with an immediate crisis and some visioning. But I do think that the survey, not a single Cavendish parent, and yes, I'm gonna bring up Cavendish, responded that moving the 6th grade to GM was an option. So I think if we do another survey, it needs to be a weighted survey, because you can't say the majority, you can say the majority of district parents, but you have to note that we all are different towns. And while we are all concerned about our children, there is more to my concern than kids. I'm also concerned about the town that I live in, and so are you. You are concerned about Andover, and Adrian, you live in Baltimore, and we all have some concern about that. So I think it is fair for us to be concerned about our town. I still think we should separate, and if we do another survey, I think we need to weight it and provide people with more information. And I will personally be a tour guide for any parent who wants to come to Cavendish, and I would be delighted to take a tour of Chester.
So I'm a fly on the wall here. Oh, by the way, I'm Wilson Chester. I'm a fly on the wall here, and I have no kids in the school system anymore, but they both did go to the school system. And I'm loving the ideas that are floating around, and while I'm typing these things, I'm following you here for a second. The middle school in this building is separate, except for the lab part, which is another issue. But the middle school in this building is separate. Cavendish families don't want to send their 6th graders to Chester. why can't there be like a combination of the two? Chester and Andover Chester and Andover, Baltimore sixth graders come to this building and be a sixth grade middle school in their separate space. Cavendish becomes a K-8 school and has a middle school in a separate space. And they both follow the same model because we're one district. They follow the same middle school model that boosts the enrollment in that building, the CTS building. It reduces the enrollment in the CAES building. And then also another thing, build the pre-K in the CTES building, which again increases the enrollment there and also opens up, I think Kate, you mentioned it, it opens up, hey, wait, my kid can continue with this school? Yeah, I might want to do that. So I think that's like a whole wider vision that doesn't hit Cavendish against Chester, and it solves both of those issues.
Chester, don't say Cavendish.
And I don't know how I'm gonna type that.
It's on tape, Deborah, it was good.
All right, Catherine Martin's online.
Hello, I'm from Andover, and I'm a retired teacher. Retired about 5 years ago, taught at Chester Andover Elementary School. And I've stayed in contact with a lot of parents. I don't have any children. I don't have any reason to the more stress you're putting on families that are already under stress. And I worry about that scenario. I think redrawing lines makes more sense because then all those kids go to one school. They're not divided between schools. And that's just all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there no other public? Oh, Steve.
I loved Andrew's comment following the parsing crisis versus long-term planning. I was in middle school, we had for a class for a number of years, there was the music another one was the library, another one was the arts, and I was one of those kids who got lost in this business, and I loved it. That's my experience. Scott talked about putting up a steel building, which is a phenomenal idea. Not foam insulated, doesn't have to be a gazillion-dollar project. But I think that there are things that can be done quickly to solve this crisis. Just want to come back.
Any other board comments?
But, well, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming to our meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need more of this. In all the meetings, not just this committee, we need it in our actual school board meetings.
Like you to bring actual Reese's peanut butter cups the next time.
Yeah.
Staring at your sweatshirt. Could use some chocolate.
All right, so, we've got a handful of meetings coming up, so tomorrow is the board retreat back here at 8 a.m. Then we have the restructuring committee, 25th of July, here at 6 p.m. And then we have the next GMUSD meeting here at August 15th at 6 p.m. All right, let's do adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned at 8:06.